you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Still about 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Or 1 minute. I'm watching my timer. You can sing to everyone, Dave, if you like, if you want to provide music.
Oh, if I had known that, I would have had mine plugged in, but no, I don't have, and I don't sing very well.
Not with that attitude.
No, I don't. I sing very poorly. I don't sing at all. I guess my brother saw me. I got a text from my brother. It's special.
Nice. All righty, it is 5 o'clock, so we can get going. Thank you to everyone that's joining us this evening. Welcome back if you had joined us during our spring season, going through Organic Gardening 101, as well as some presentations on potatoes, lettuce, and kale. And joining us again this evening, our specialist on artichokes and tomatoes as well is going to be sharing with us some great information about garlic. Going to be covering everything that you'll need to know about planting and having it grow over the winter, as well as some really fascinating history of garlic and some recipes that look really, really delicious, and I'm excited to try out. Our presenter, Dave Long. He has lived in the Tahoe Basin for 18 years and is a master gardener trained through the University of California Master Gardener Program. He's a wonderful, wonderful human, really loves fly fishing, a connoisseur of wine, amongst other things. So just a reminder for those of you who did participate in our earlier season workshops and have been growing throughout the summer, we're really, really excited. We've been hearing lots back about successes and also struggles of growing in the Tahoe and Truckee area. But we'll be reaching out. We sent out a follow-up survey this Monday, I believe, yesterday, on potatoes, and we'll be following up with some additional end-of-season surveys for all of the plants that we passed out with those workshops. And as a reminder, that helps us with the research that we are doing. It's a varietal phenology study, and it helps us understand what species grow well in this area, as well as how they adapt or maybe struggle to grow in this area, and also what different factors in our personal gardening practices may be contributing to that as well. And that's a huge help for us, and we really appreciate any information you're able to provide. So keep an eye out in your email, and if you don't see those surveys from us and you know you have some starter plants from us, please reach out. We'll provide an email at the end of this workshop for Dave that you can reach out to make sure that you're able to follow up with us. So going through a few Zoom things for this evening. In our upper right-hand corner here, we can see some lovely photos of me and my roommate. We're hoping that for your best viewing pleasure, if you put it in speaker view by clicking the button, you may see a ton of people's faces right now, and that's called gallery view. So if you switch to the speaker view, you will just see Dave when he's presenting. Additionally, in the lower right-hand corner, you can see here when we're having Dave share his presentation, much like I'm screen sharing right now. If you click just this small square, you're able to only see Dave's face instead of lots of people's faces. It's not a huge issue, but may alter your presentation enjoyment experience. Additionally, we'll have a question and answer period at the end of the workshop. And throughout the presentation, you are able to put your questions in the chat box. So I think it's at the top of the screen, there'll be a drop down, but these three squares, or the ellipses in the chat bubble, you can click on that and type in any questions you have throughout the presentation or during the question and answer session, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible with me moderating that. But without further ado, I'm going to stop screen sharing and turn it over to Dave.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I cannot see your screen, but I can see you.
Okay, so I need to figure out how to get to the screen share again from my computer. This happens every time we do this. So,
so in the center, on the bottom of your screen in the center, there's a green rectangle with an arrow pointing up that says screen share. Do you see that?
let's see. I hate to say I'm not good at this, but no, I don't see that.
Do you see any bar across the bottom?
Hang on, maybe if I make you full size, yeah, I got it. Share screen. Okay, there you go. Okay, I think that's it. Let's see if it works. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do share screen. Okay, let's see what happens. There we go. Can you see that now? Can you see it now?
No, I still don't see it.
Okay, sorry. Let's try
No
it again. Let's try it again. Try it again. Okay. I'm horrible at this stuff. Why do you have me doing this?
I'm pulling up your presentation as well, so.
Okay, so I'm making you large. I have screen share. So I have that, and now I see you and I see all the little ones. So I can go back and do my PowerPoint presentation.
Mm-hmm. I also have yours up if you want me to screen share, and I can toggle your slides for you.
Well, yeah, but can you see my screen is the thing.
No, I can't see your screen at all.
Okay, guys, this is really frustrating for me because we just went through this before. Okay, there you are. Here I am. What do you want me to do to get this thing going? I see screen share.
Here, I'm gonna share your PowerPoint, and I'll just you can say next.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
And we'll do it like this.
Okay. So you're going to go to the demonstration. I mean the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Do you see this on your screen now?
Yeah, I got it. I got it now. Okay. Next. Okay. So we're talking about. Thank you. I don't know why mine doesn't work, but anyway, we're talking about garlic. This is one of our Growing in Lake Tahoe-Truckee Grow Your Own High Elevation workshops. We've done 4 of them in the spring, 1 in the fall. We were just talking about which ones we want to do next spring. So this fall one, we're talking about fall planting of garlic. The stinking rose, this is an allium. It's Allium sativum for the soft neck garlics, in Allium sativum officarium for the hard neck garlics. Our group of people involved in this include UC Davis Environmental Research Center, TURC, Slow Foods Lake Tahoe, the Master Gardeners of Lake Tahoe, the Desert Farming Initiative, which is a University of Nevada group, and then the Tahoe Heritage Foundation, which is where I am participating at. And that's who I'm representing tonight. So the Tahoe Heritage Foundation logo down there in the lower right-hand corner will show up throughout the presentation. Next slide. Okay, so these groups have come together and we kind of informally work together, and we call ourselves DIG for the Demonstration Garden Group. We work informally. We do operate 4 demonstration gardens, one of which is the Truckee Demonstration Garden, which Slow Foods Lake Tahoe operates, the North Lake Tahoe Demonstration Garden, and the Tahoe City Demonstration Garden, which the TURC group manages, and then the Talaka Estates Vegetable Garden at the Pope House, which is where I operate and do my volunteer work. Next one. Next one. Okay, so topics covered. What? too much back? Gosh, you're as bad as I am at this. Okay, topics covered, who we are, I just did that. Reporting and communications, we'll talk about garlic in Allings, which I'll talk about, and history, culinary aspects, fantastic, planting and care, and then we're going to talk about the varieties that we're evaluating this year. This year's varieties were selected based on taste, so this is going to be very interesting to see. And then this Saturday, we're distributing the materials out, the actual garlics. We're set up to deal with about 150 people, get 4 bulbs of garlic each, and then they'll plant them and tell us how they work. Okay, next one. Okay, we're providing the workshop on growing garlic. If you participate, you can receive, if you've requested plant materials, the garlic bulbs, you will receive 4 bulbs. And to participate, you have to provide, or you've already provided, the contact information. And then we'll send out notes on growing and tips on how your garlic is doing. And then we will send out, we will answer any questions you have. If you have a problem with your garlic, something's going wrong or something's going good, we'll respond to that with whatever answers that we will make up. And then we'll follow up with a survey asking how the materials we provided did. And then for all this work on our part, we're expecting you to provide us the information. Next one. Okay, so I'm David Long. If I'm not working in the garden, and I'm usually fishing. And the question mark represents the person that we have yet to identify who's going to follow up with the actual hard work, the sending out the survey and sending out the newsletters or the garden notes that we prepare related to garden. And again, on the lower right-hand side, you can see the Tahoe Heritage Foundation. That's where I'm doing volunteer work, and that's where I operate their demonstration garden for growing vegetables. Next one. So this workshop is talking about phenology, not to be confused with phrenology. Phenology looks at the growth and development, differences in plants due to climate and weather. So specifically what we're doing is we're comparing how weather and climate affects 2 different varieties, and that's called varietal comparative phenology. So that looks at the difference between growth and development due to weather. Next one. Okay, phrenology, not to be confused with phenology, is the theory or analytical method based on the belief that the shape and size of your head dictates how your character traits, intelligence will affect your life. So kind of different, but kind of really different. Next one. Okay, the importance of varietal comparative phenology. It'd be interesting to do comparative varietal comparative phrenology. No. Okay, so the method used in identifying late, mid, and early season varieties of a plant, in this case, garlic. And depending on how early or late or how weather affects the plant growth, could be the basis for defining a new variety. So if something happens earlier, that may be important, or later. It does provide important information on development to growers. So an early developing garlic might be important to people in certain categories. It might be important to those who produce fresh garlic, farmers markets and stuff like that. It might be less important to people who are providing that garlic to processing facilities that may be dehydrating or whatever. It is also important for the integrated pest management strategies, IPM, so that an earlier developing plant or a later developing plant might avoid the height of a pest season like aphids or whiteflies or something like that. So how the plant develops in terms of climate and weather may have an impact on its success as it relates to insect or fungal or pathogenic infections. And of course, it's always an important consideration when you're dealing with bringing something to market. So typically, the people who bring the first season's garlic or the first season's tomatoes to the market get higher prices than those who bring it in later in the season. So varietal comparative phenology has a great deal of importance. Okay, next one. Okay, what it does not cover, it does not look at disease resistance. It does not look at plant appearance. It does not look at how the plant produces or its growth habits. Now, these may be important for determining other attributes or defining a specific variety, but in terms of phenology, it does not have an effect. We're not considering that. Photoperiodism is another aspect that we might be looking at, but not through VCP, the effects of daylight on organisms. And for plants, in garlic, tomatoes, potatoes, artichokes, it's not necessarily the length of day, but it's the length of non-daylight hours that affects the plant growth and development. Next one. Okay, so garlic is an allium. It is a culinary, it's used in the kitchen. It's a culinary allium. Alliums can be divided into, well, let me back up. Culinary alliums, those that are used in the kitchen, can be divided into two groups. One is typically called the onion group, and this includes the chives, the scallions, the green onions, bulb onions, the shallots, the false shallots, and the garlic chives. And then the second group are the garlics or leeks, and these would be leeks, elephant garlic, and then the soft neck garlic and the hard neck garlic. The difference between those two on a morphological basis is that the onion group, the chives, the bulb onions, and the shallots, all have round leaves that are hollow, the typical onion leaf, whereas the leeks, elephant garlic, and the true garlics have a flat leaf with a vein down the middle of it. So if you happen to look at wild onions or wild garlic, if it has a hollow stem, it would be a wild onion, and if it has a stem that has a vein up the middle and is flat, then it would be a garlic or a leek. So those are the two categories of culinary alliums, and beyond that, there's a whole slew of alliums that are used in as decorative plants and that kind of stuff. Next slide. Oh, this is a great slide. I love a lot of information, but we'll talk about it. So, gardens of garlic. Okay, Charlemagne, the great Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor, the son of Pippin the Short, the father of Pippin the Hunchback. He devised a system called the Capitulary of Charlemagne, which was a book that told how his noblemen and those church men under his protection should run their gardens, what they should grow. And in it, he listed the plants that should be grown, and it included garlic as an important plant, onions, shallots, and leeks. So for the allium group, it was very important that in your garden, you should have these per Charlemagne. So one of the other things in your garden should be the yellow iris, the symbol of France. Charlemagne was father of started the French dynasties. So the fleur-de-lis was something that was supposed to be grown in your garden to show your support of the crown. A garden kind of is interesting too, because a garden here is defined as a plot of land close to your residence that is protected, where specialty plants or important plants are grown. So it differentiates from a field. It differentiates from a common area. A garden is a place where special plants are grown and are usually protected by either a wall or a fence or whatever. So when you have a garden, you're putting in that plot of land those plants that you hold close to you as being dear or important. And then just so that everybody knows what garlic, the name comes from, the garlic name comes from two words. One is a pot vegetable or a pot herb called the leek, L-E-A-K or L-E-A-C, and the shape of the leaf to differentiate it from the onion, which was lance-shaped, which in Anglo-Saxon would be gar. So the shape of the leaf and then its use, which was a pot herb, and then gar leek. So there you go. Next one. You guys are all wondering why I'm wearing the hat, I'm sure, but okay. So terroir, garlics and alliums, especially when they're grown in consecutive generations in the same place, will start to take on the environmental factors, the taste that the environmental factors impart onto the plant. And so terroir, the quality that the specific environment these plants are grown in, will affect the taste. And in alliums, in garlic, that importance will affect how well it does, its taste, its texture. And so for us in Tahoe, we're trying to find those garlics that do best and then replant and replant and replant those. There's a couple school projects here in South Lake Tahoe which are doing that, kind of however you want to say it, but they keep replanting their cloves and replanting their cloves and replanting their cloves. And it does have an effect on the taste and the how successful the garlic is. So when you're replanting your cloves, you want to replant the largest cloves from the largest bulbs. And I do have an example here. I have same garlic variety. This is red top, which you will be receiving. And can you guys see this? Yeah, can you see that? Yes, shake your head. Okay. Okay, so the difference is that one garlic clove or garlic bulb, this one, was planted using large cloves to begin with, whereas this one used smaller cloves when it was planted. And these were planted within 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches of each other. But the difference in size of these bulbs are due exclusively to the size of the clove that was used to plant it. So again, for continuing this, you want to plant the biggest cloves to do it. Okay, can you put me back to my screen in? All I see is you. I see my brother up there. Hey. Okay, there we go. Okay, so terroir, next one. Next slide. This is so awkward. Okay, garlic cultivation. You should consider treating your cloves prior to planting. And we'll talk about that. And one of the reasons we will talk about that in its own slide is that by treating your cloves prior to planting, you actually, for Lake Tahoe, will reduce the amount potentially of the use of herbicides or fertilizers that you have to use to get a nice large bulb. So this method of treating prior to planting does allow you to use less of those fertilizers, which does have a direct effect on the lake by reducing the use of fertilizers. So to prepare the area for planting, you want to amend the soil as needed. If you have, for alliums and garlic in specific, alliums includes, this actually applies to onions too, or shallots. You need a fertile, well-drained mineral soil. So you don't want a lot of moisture being held in the soil with the use of potting soils and that kind of stuff. You want a lot of sand or coarse sand in it, or perlite or vermiculite, something that will keep the soil light, but retain moisture, but not let it get soggy. And then you can put some soil, garlic likes sulfur in the soil, so the sulfur is helpful. If you're not planting organic, then you can use like ammonium sulfate, or if you're doing organic, you can add gypsum, calcium sulfate to the soil to get some sulfur in the soil, and that will affect the overall taste. That bite that you get when you taste garlic is a sulfur compound, so a little bit of sulfur goes a long way. You want to plant the clove of garlic 2 to 3 inches below the surface of the soil, so that the top of the clove, the pointy end of the clove, is 2 to 3 inches below the ground surface. If you are in extremely cold areas, frigid areas, like perhaps Truckee, you might want to stick it in a little lower in depth. And that's because as the ground freezes, it gives you a little more protection. Typically, you want to plant 6 to 8 inches on center. So for a 5-gallon container, for example, you might be able to put 2 or 3 cloves of garlic in a 5-gallon bucket with holes in the bottom, and you should be good to go. We have grown garlic and provided these workshops for going on 6 years, 6 seasons anyway, and we've planted them a number of ways. And so we've found that the mounded row, if you're not planting in a raised bed or in a container, is the best way. And a mounded row is you just pile up dirt in a row, and then you plant in that. That allows the water to percolate a little bit quicker. It allows the soil to warm up a little more. And we've found consistently across the board that that is a more effective way to grow garlic than just planting it in the native soil at ground level. So mounding up your rows helps a lot. When you plant your clove of garlic, you make a hole, you stick the garlic in, and then you cover it up. If you do that, you don't have good plant to soil contact. So what you want to do is push the soil down around the clove that you put in so that you can do it. And the last one is don't allow the soil to dry out. If you dry out the soil, then the plant will go into kind of a dormancy and then come out of dormancy, go into dormancy. And in doing that, your clove will be much smaller. And I can't see the last one, so on my screen anyway. I don't know what the last one says. What does 6 say? Or next one. Let's go to the next.
It just says, do not allow the soil to dry out.
Okay, next one then. Thank you. This is wacky. Okay, 6 is on the other page. No wonder. Okay, so those of you that and your garlic comes up, starts sprouting before the snow falls, you want to consider mulching. And the reason is you want to protect the bulb or the clove that is sprouted from freezing all the way. If you don't, then your clove will still develop in the spring, but you'll have a very small clove. I mean, a small bulb with very small cloves. So if it sprouts, then you want to mulch over that and then remove it in the spring. If you are in an area that gets intense colds, maybe like Truckee that gets regularly below freezing, mulching, and that might help as well. In the spring, you want to side dress your rows or your plants with your fertilizer or manure. And then if your plants are not doing really well, you might want to spray on a foliar amendment like kelp oil or fish emulsion directly onto the leaves to help with the nitrogen uptake. I mentioned earlier that there's 2 types of garlic, hard-neck varieties and soft-neck varieties. The hard-neck varieties will send up a scape, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And to get your biggest bulbs, you need to remove that scape. The soft-neck variety that we have, which is red talk, it does not produce the scape. Okay, and then sometime here in Tahoe and Truckee, probably at the beginning of August, maybe mid-August, the leaves will start to look slightly yellowed, some of them. And at that point, when they start yellowing up, you want to stop watering them for a week or so, let the leaves droop and continue to yellow. And then there's always those that seem to keep going and going and going. After about a week or so, just take your rake and rake over the remaining leaves so that they behave like the rest of the garlic does. Just rake them over. I mean, you're a gardener, so the difference between a gardener and a hunter-gatherer, a gardener dictates what happens in the garden, whereas a hunter-gatherer waits for the garden to react, and then he does whatever he wants to. So as a gardener, you're dictating what's going on in the garden, and when the leaves start to droop, rake over all the remaining leaves so that all the plants are doing all the same thing at the same time. It'll make your life a lot easier. After 1 or 2 weeks of not watering, you can harvest it. When you harvest it, you want to immediately cut off the roots. You can let it hang for a week or so. The soil that adheres to the bulbs will dry off. The papers that cover the cloves will dry out, and you can just take your a dry cloth or your hand and get that nice clean look of your garlic bulb, and then cut off the foliage, the leaves, unless you want to braid it. If you want to braid it, at that point you can braid it. Most of the braided garlics that you see are soft neck garlics because they store longer. The hard necks don't store as long. So next slide. Okay, we talked about your pre-planting preparation of your cloves. And this is the first year we're recommending this. And this came from our supplier, Keen Garlic. And it's a way so that you do not have to over-fertilize your crop in the spring, but at the same time provide good performance. And so the first thing you want to do is separate the cloves that you're going to be planting from the bulbs, and then place it in alcohol or peroxide. And King Garlic says that you can use vodka, but why waste vodka that way? For only 10 minutes. And that takes care of any bacteria, fungus, or viruses on the surface of your cloves that you're planting. Then remove it from that sanitizer, and then put it into your fertilizer solution. So if you use a liquid fertilizer like fish emulsion or kelp or Miracle-Gro, you mix it up at the prescribed rate, 1 tablespoon per gallon, 5 tablespoons, whatever the recommended rate is. You make a solution of that, and then add 1 teaspoon of baking soda per gallon into that solution. Throw in your cloves of garlic, and then let them sit there in that solution for a minimum of 30 minutes to 12 hours, and you can leave it in for 24 hours. If you leave it in for more than 24 hours in that solution, what you'll see is a rapid development of roots on your cloves. The roots are rather delicate and will be damaged when you plant them. So what you want to do is plant that clove before those roots develop. Otherwise, all the energy expended from your clove to make the roots is wasted, and you'll end up again with smaller cloves, smaller bulbs. And then you want to plant them within 24 hours from your fertilizer solution. So typically you let it go for 30 minutes, an hour, and then go out and plant them. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. Phytosanitation is related to keeping your garden, your plants free of pests or diseases. And for garlic, it's an allium, and so the disease that you typically get or potentially could get would be your onion maggot, although for garlic it's called the garlic maggot, although from a taxonomic perspective it's the same fly. And anyway, maggots will start chewing on your garlic bulb, and then they will pupate and then emerge as a greenish fly. So the major insect problem that you have on garlic and onions are the onion or garlic maggot. Next one. For fungus and bacteria, the disease that hits garlic is called a garlic rust fungus. Garlic rust fungus is what has affected a huge acreage around Gilroy, California, which is why they can no longer grow garlic in the Gilroy area. So all the seed garlic is planted in Nevada and Arizona, Oregon, and then they ship the seed garlic to rust-free areas in California where it's grown, and then it's grown in California and then shipped to Gilroy for processing. So since garlic is asexually reproduced, it does not make any sense to have flowers or anything in your garlic patch. You want it free of grasses and weeds and that kind of stuff. But before we move on from this one, I should say garlic is a fantastic companion planting for your other vegetables. So if you have a problem with rodents, if you have a problem with pests digging in your yard, by planting garlic around or nearby, you'll find that it discourages them from squirrels or chipmunks or mice or gophers from digging in your garden if they just don't like the taste of garlic. Although garlic infused gopher meat is supposed to be a delicacy. So, okay, next slide. Okay, the anatomy of a garlic. So on the left-hand side, you have the garlic plant. You have the bulb. The bulb contains cloves. For hardneck garlics, you have a stem-like, flower-like come up, and it is called a scape, S-C-A-P-E. And the scape consists of the stem, like a flower stem. It consists of a spathe, S-P-A-T-H-E, which is a leaf-like structure that covers the umbel, which is the flower-like portion of the plant. Next one. Okay, so elephant garlic is actually a leaf. It's not a true garlic, and its scape, or its flower stalk, will be perfectly straight up and down. Whereas the garlic scapes from hardneck garlics, as it grows, it will make this curlicue, this circular thing. And when it makes that circle, that first curlicue, you can cut it off as close to the leaves as possible. It is a delicacy. So when you get to that point and you start cutting it off, just don't throw it away. Chop it up, saute it with a little butter or olive oil, put it in your eggs or on your steak or whatever. And it is, in the culinary world, it is a delicacy that gets huge dollars in the farmers markets. So please consider harvesting your scapes and then enjoying them. Next slide. If you do not harvest the scapes, you will get smaller garlic bulbs. And as the scape develops, as that middle picture shows, it will start to straighten out and become woody and not edible. For an elephant garlic, it will actually form a flower, and that flower will set seeds, just like any flower will. The seeds will be black. You can plant the seeds. The first year, you will get a single clove, a large clove, and then the second year, you would get the typical elephant garlic bulb. For true garlic, true hardneck garlics, the flower is not truly a flower, but rather it is an asexual reproduction method. And instead of seeds, you'll get these little bulbules. And the bulbules are nothing more than tiny little cloves. So if you were to plant those bulbules, what you'll get the first season is a single clove. And then the second season, if you leave it in the ground, you would get a full bulb with a regular sized clove. So that's the reproduction method for both elephant garlic, not a true garlic, and then the true garlic. Next slide. The clove itself is somewhat like a seed. So if you were to cut a clove and look at it closely, what you see is the fleshy part of the clove, and that's the nutrients that go into developing the plant before photosynthesis takes place. You have a basal plate, that's where the roots are forming. And then if you look closely, you'll see a slight cavity, and underneath the cavity, it will be your foliage leaf and the primordial leaf that keeps sending up leaves for the garlic plant. The cavity helps in that the foliage leaf has space to grow before it pops open the clove itself. So next one. Okay, garlic taste. So everybody has tasted garlic, although we'll talk more about it because this is a fascinating thing and is the basis for our selection of garlic plants to be tried, trialed this. Notice I moved the Tahoe Heritage Foundation over. Okay, so what you have is a chemical reaction taking place. So you have this alliin, which is a compound in cells of the garlic plant. In separate, distinct cells, you have an allinase enzyme that's in the cells. When the cells are broken open and come together, in other words, the alanine and the allinase come together, and they form a compound called allicin, which is what you taste as the garlic taste, that sulfur taste, that bite on your tongue. That's allicin, and it only occurs when you bring broken cells together to form. So if you go to the store and smell a garlic, it does not smell like really it should, because there is no chemical reaction taking place. If you throw a clove of garlic into your salad, into your sauce, it won't give you that taste as if you put chopped or minced garlic where those compounds come together. The reaction is rather quick and can be muted by an oil like olive oil. So if you really want good tasting garlic in your sauces and stuff, you want to chop your garlic up and then add it to the oil. Don't add the oil and then chop it up. Otherwise, that reaction won't take place and you won't have that nice bite of garlic. Next one. Okay, so this is where I'm wearing the hat. And it has to do with Mikhail Gorbachev. And at the bottom, Mr. Putin as well. So in the 1970s, well, let's talk about Gorbachev. Okay, first of all, as a teenager, he worked as a combine operator. So he was as part of the collectivism of the Soviet Union, and he worked on a farm running a combine. As he grew older, he did get a degree in law, but also agricultural economics. And then in 1978, he was appointed Secretariat of Agriculture for all of the Soviet Union. And even as early as the late 70s, he espoused the idea of sharing information and materials with the West, specifically the United States, and to get an exchange so they could exchange their information with us and improve their agricultural base much more quickly. When he was in office as premier of the Soviet Union, he said, I'm going to allow American agricultural USDA inspectors to come to the Soviet Union and collect certain types of plants, one of which was varieties of garlic. Garlic developed in the wild in the Caucasus Mountains, in the Armenia area, in Turkestan. That's the homeland of wild garlic that we know today. So where does Putin come in? Well, Putin was a KGB officer starting in 1975. By 1978 through 1980, he was in charge with deciding whether or not foreign government officials could come to the Soviet Union. And so while Gorbachev was promoting the idea of having foreign government officials come to the Soviet Union to collect garlic in Georgia and Armenia and all these places for the Soviet Union had their military installations, Putin was there saying, no, we don't want this, we can't have this, we don't want this. When by the time Gorbachev was the premier of Soviet Union, Putin had moved on to a higher rank and was not involved in it, even though he expressed concern about having foreign government officials go throughout sensitive areas of the Soviet Union collecting supposedly these plants. They agricultural guys that went to the Soviet Union, they had with them an interpreter to help them interpret what was going on, and then also a KBG agent with them to make sure that they were truly agricultural specialists and not spies trying to find out where the Soviets had their installation. So it's a fascinating thing. And so who was president in the United States at the time? Ronald Reagan. So before it was Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, it was Mr. Gorbachev, give us your garlic. And so some of the garlic that you'll be receiving as part of the program are these Gorbachev garlics that came to the United States during this first wave of Glasnost. I guess that's the way you pronounce it. So it's a fascinating story, and it's why I'm wearing this funny hat. Next slide. Okay, so we're talking about garlics now, and we're really down to it. At our level of interest, we're talking about two different kinds of garlic, the hardneck garlic and the softneck garlic. The difference is the hardneck garlics will send up a scape, S-C-A-P-E, that you will harvest and eat and enjoy, and the softneck garlics won't. The garlic that you buy in the grocery store almost invariably is a softneck garlic. Why? Because it stores longer in the store, up to a year, and it does not require field people to go out and remove all these scapes. So it's a cheaper product to grow, it lasts longer in the stores, and it generally is a milder garlic taste. So within the hardneck garlic types, there's 8 different groupings, and it's Creole Asiatic, purple stripe. Well, you can read it. And then for softneck garlics, there's 2 basic ones, the silver skins and the artichokes. Silver skins would be like California early garlic, California late garlic, California white garlic, Susanville garlic, and the stuff that you would buy in a store. The artichokes are a little more robust in taste and are a little more uncommon, and typically have a more colorful look than the white typical garlic that you would find in the store. So the ones that we have today, next slide, we're going to start off with the Armenian hardneck garlic. This one is the most strongly garlicky tasting one in our suite of garlic bulbs. This one is a porcelain hardneck, so it will send up a garlic scape. It has very large bulbs. It is very garlicky, very strong. So it's great. It's going to be a great garlic. If you like garlic, this is the one you're going to like. So this came out of Azerbaijan by Chester Aaron. He's an author. His father left the Russia during the time of the last czar. He was one, during the White Russians, Red Russians, and that kind of stuff. His father left there, but the Aaron family had family in this area, and during this 1980s, he was permitted to go back for literary purposes, visiting his old, not the girl. So kind of an interesting story with Chester Aaron, by anyway. Okay, next one. Okay, Georgian crystal garlic. So this is one of the true garlics from the Gorbachev era. Why I'm wearing the funny hat. It has large cloves. It is very good tasting garlic, but it is slightly milder than the Armenian garlic. Still has large cloves. It's easy to use. This one and the Armenian, you can store for maybe 6 months if you store it right. 7 months is about as long as you can store it before the garlic will either start sprouting or get soft and not usable. But it is one of the better tasting ones, and it has a very good balanced taste. It's great, and it's from the Republic of Georgia, Georgian crystal, and it's a very good tasting one, but not as garlicky as the Armenian. Next one. Okay, this Pihosky garlic, it sounds like it should be a Russian one or a Polish one. It is Polish, but it's a purple striped hardneck garlic. It also has large cloves. It has this purplish cast to it. It is a heirloom garlic from the Polish community in Stephensport, Wisconsin, going back at least to the early 1900s. It's called Pihosky because this Chris Pihosky was a real big fan of it, and his family grew it, and then he commercialized it slightly at farmers market, and eventually it got picked up by commercial growers like Fillory Farms and Keene garlic, and has been much more widespread. It can have very, very large bulbs, up to 3 inches in diameter. And it is a slightly longer storing one than your porcelain. So, but it's not as mild. It's not as mild. And this one's kind of interesting because the flavor changes dramatically from raw to roasted. So if you want to taste a raw flavor versus roasted, you'll find that it changes dramatically, becomes much more mild, more complex flavor when it's roasted. And then our last one is, the next slide, is this red talk or Toclavera garlic. It's a soft neck garlic. We demoed it over at the Palaca Estates at the Pope House, and we found it to be extremely great tasting, very productive garlic, also rather large bulbs if you plant large cloves. And we found it very, the size of the cloves affects the size of the bulbs very dramatically. So the larger the cloves, the better off you are going to be. This one is a fantastic one for roasting because it has a much more mild, complex flavor when it is roasted. It has a beautiful color, and because the bulb sizes will change, will vary. This is one that could be braided. It's also from the Republic of Georgia, and Tahoe-friendly is the little community nearby. It came to the United States from East Germany's seed bank, who had collected it from the Soviet Union in Georgia, and then had it growing in East Germany. And then part of the Gorbachev thing was to provide the information, so that's how it came. And it stores well over 9 months up to a year. So those are the 4 garlics that we're going to be providing everybody. So next slide. What do I have? I forgot. Garlic production. Oh, no, now we're getting into kind of funny stuff. Okay, garlic production. The United States is the 9th largest producer of garlic in the world. 9th. China produces 100 times more volume than the US. China provides 80% of the world's garlic. California is the largest producer in the United States, with about 75% of the total US production coming from California, followed by Oregon and Nevada. Oregon and Nevada grow mainly seed garlic that goes into California. Okay, next slide. Okay, as far as I know, these are still true. You can look them up. I gave you the email, although with this blue background, it's probably hard to say. So in Gary, Indiana, it's a violation for any citizen to go to the movies, theater, ride a streetcar or bus within 4 hours of eating garlic. And then in Minnesota, Alexandria, Minnesota, you can't make love to your wife if you have garlic or sardines on your breath, and by law, you're supposed to brush your teeth if she complains. Next one. I love that one. Okay, next one. And then if you're into the Bible stuff, Satan, on leaving the Garden of Eden, as he left, in his left footprint, garlic sprouted, and in his right footprint, onion sprouted. So, and then if you're into Korean myths, a female bear only ate garlic and mugwort, and then she was transformed because of that diet into a woman and gave birth to a son who founded the nation of Korea. Go figure that one. And then, of course, some countries, garlic is put on the door to banish bad ghosts. And then in Transylvania, you know, garlic around your neck to keep Dracula away. And then in the Quran, those of you who follow that religion, whoever has eaten garlic should not come into our mosque. Next page. Okay, and then this is, it's long and wordy, but this 4 Thieves vinegar, and there's you can see the recipe there, and it was kind of like a sanitizer. So you put 50 cloves of garlic with sage and meadowsweet, wormwort. You cook it for a number of 15 days, 2 weeks. You strain it, you put it in a bottle, and then you put it on your hands and your ears and your temples and your nose when you approach somebody with the plague. It was kind of like the COVID sanitizer for the plague, I guess. So it didn't work. But there's the recipe in case you want to do it. And then, of course, Scandinavians, who doesn't like the Swedes? So garlic was put around the neck of goats to protect them from trolls. And then there was a long tradition in Europe that if you wanted chickens to do well, you would feed them garlic. And then in 2002, researchers found that if you did feed garlic to chickens, their eggs had lower cholesterol. So maybe there was something to be said with that folk tradition. The next one. Okay, Will Rogers. Who doesn't like Will Rogers? Those of you who are too young to remember Will Rogers or don't know who Will Rogers is, fantastic guy, died in an airplane accident. Anyway, his thing was in Gilroy, the only town I know where you can marinate a steak by hanging it on a clothesline because of garlic. You know how much garlic was there. And then for the other allium, he had onions. Onions can make you cry, but there hasn't been a vegetable that can make people laugh. And then those of you who are competitive, you might want to consider this one. There is a world garlic eating competition in the UK, but the world record for eating, and I looked it up, chewing garlic was 34 cloves of garlic in 1 minute. The guy from Nepal said it in Kathmandu, 2009. So doesn't sound like a lot until you consider chewing it. If you chew it, I would recommend Red Talk over Armenian for sure. Okay, festivals and events. Okay, everybody knows the Garlic Festival in Gilroy. Our hearts go out to these people. Coronavirus this year, and then the mass shooting. In fact, it was in the paper this last week about the lawsuits going on. I've heard in talking to the organizers that they still plan to have the Garlic Festival next year, but the event is part of the lawsuit, so who knows. And then locally here in the Reno area, they have a garlic festival in August. This year was canceled because of the Corona thing. And our Tahoe group, in whatever configuration, Master Gardeners, Slow Foods, something, we have participated since its inception in 2017. And I'm hoping that maybe some of you growing garlic this year might want to participate as a Tahoe garlic group. Next one. Okay, there are international garlic festivals, so if you want to set your travel plans around garlic, you can go to Italy, you can go to the Isle of Wight in the UK, you can go to Perth, Ontario, Canada. The French one, the French festival was written up in Reader's Digest in like 1974, and that was read by a guy that was a promoter in Gilroy with the Visitors Association or somewhere. And because France had a festival, they thought that the Gilroy could have one too, and it's been very successful. And then Turkey has a group, and then China had a festival symposium for a couple of years. And even though they produce 80% of the world's garlic, I have yet to find a current festival celebrating that. So anyway, next one. So we talked about garlic, we talked about growing garlic. Let's talk about who provided it to us. Keene Garlic out of Wisconsin is the one who provided the garlic to us this year. Their website, KeenanOrganics.com, has a bunch of tips on production methods, cooking methods, storing methods for your garlic. These guys, Keene, Hollenbeck and Cindy Hollenbeck, are really interesting, nice people. I've talked to them, or at least I've talked to Cindy. They've been in business for about 10 years, and in 2015, they decided to go from growing seed garlic for other people. They decided to go direct to a customer business base. And they also help other small farmers deal with getting into the business. And then if they grow garlic with Keene and Cindy's help, then they will help distribute it through the Keene Garlic company. So each year, every field that grows garlic for them is tested for pests and fertility and then adjusted accordingly. Next one. So the only thing left to talk about, I think, is talking about eating garlic. So I have 3 recipes here that are kind of interesting. One is the roasted garlic, very simple. Cut off the top of a bulb of garlic, drizzle your olive oil or other oil into that cut off head of garlic, wrap it in tin foil, put it in the oven, 425 degrees for 35 minutes, slightly longer up here in Tahoe where the elevation does affect the cooking time. Let it cool slightly, peel it, squeeze it out, eat it, put it on toast, eat it raw or eat it directly from that. Easy peasy. Next one. This one, pesto, is one of my favorites. I make a lot of pesto. When I make pesto, I make a whole batch and then I put it in ice cube trays, freeze it, and then put the frozen cubes pesto in a bag and then use it all year. This one uses basil, garlic, pine nuts, Parmesan, salt and pepper, and then olive oil. The nice thing about pesto is it uses the raw garlic, so you can really taste that flavor differences between the different types of raw garlic. So if you make pesto with the Armenian garlic versus the red top garlic, you have a slightly different taste that goes with it. There is a variation of this recipe that is, instead of the fresh basil leaves, you can use the fresh greens of a carrot. So if you go to the store and you rip off the carrots of that and throw the greens away, now you have a use for it. You can use it in a carrot-based pesto, which is actually pretty good. I've had it a couple times. The next one. Okay, those of you who like garlic and those of you who are interested in really taking this to heart, we have to look at black garlic. Black garlic has been around for in Asian cuisines for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's a simple process. You take a number of bulbs of garlic. You trim it so that it's just the clove of garlic. I mean, the bulb of garlic, I'm sorry. You put the bulbs in a slow cooker so that they don't touch each other. You turn the slow cooker on warm, not low, not high, but warm setting. Usually that's for maintaining it. And then you let it cook for 2 to 4 weeks. After 2 to 4 weeks, it goes beyond caramelization and it will turn black. And then you use that garlic just as you would for other garlic recipes. You put it in an airtight container for up to 3 months. And then you just use it like you normally would. The downside and why I have not made this is that during this 2 to 4 week cooking time, it will smell up your kitchen or wherever you're cooking with garlic. And I'm just not quite ready for that yet. So that's black garlic, been around for hundreds, if not 1,000 years in Asian cuisine. And recently it has become the darling of new wave culinary aspects. So it's showing up by all the fancy chefs and gourmet people, black garlic, but it's been around forever and a day. Next slide. Okay, hey, that's it. Let me check my time. Gosh, almost exactly an hour. So thank you very much. My name is David Long. There's my Earthlink account. You can contact me if you have questions about growing garlic. And again, this Saturday at I think 9 to 11 at 3 different locations around Lake Tahoe. Those of you who signed up can pick up the 4 bulbs of the garlic that we've talked about. And I think we have the Soviet Union stamp on the Gorbachev garlic bags. So you get the Soviet export stamp. So with that, I'm done and I can turn it back over to Anne.
Perfect. So we have a few questions that have come through, and if there are any other questions, make sure to put those in the chat box coming to Anne Graham. The first question that came through was, how deep are the roots? Are pots okay for planting garlic?
Pots are fine for planting garlic. In a standard soil, 90% of the roots will be in the first 6 to 8 inches of soil below the bulb. 6 to 8 inches, 90% of the roots. The maximum depth of the roots is about 12 to 16 inches. So you have your clove that you plant a couple inches below the surface, and then 6 inches below that, 90% of the roots would develop anyway. So a deep pot would be fine. A growing bag would be perfect. A 5-gallon container would be awesome. So that should help you very, very much. And the worst that's going to happen is that they'll be slightly root bound, so don't worry about it. But you should have at least 6 inches of soil below your bottom of the clove that you plant.
Great. Can you eat the scapes? I know you had mentioned this, but if you could just clarify for everyone.
Okay. So as the scape forms, it's like a flower stalk. It will grow up 6 inches and then it will start to curlicue and curlicue again. And then as it matures, that curlicue will start to straighten out. And then the spathe, the leaf-like structure covering the flower umbel will come off, and then the umbel will develop. So if you harvest the scape before it makes its first curlicue, then the plant will think, geez, what happened? I should do another one. And then suddenly you're losing a lot of energy into bulb formation by having it put out another scape. So you want to harvest your scapes after it makes the first curlicue, cut it off, and then that's the most tender it's going to be. You can chop it up, That would be the stem, the spathe, the umbel, everything going, and just do it that way. And it's very edible. So I like the question because it allows me to cover something that I should have covered in the talk. The other thing you can do early in the season, before the scape forms, if you planted a lot of garlic and it's close, tight quarters, you can harvest the green garlic, which will only be a large single clove. It won't have formed a bulb, and that's called green garlic. And that's also a delicacy and also very high on the foo-foo culinary charts, to be used very similar to a green onion or chives. And you just chop that up and use it. But the scapes really are super expensive at the farmer's market. And if you're growing, since we have 3 hardneck garlics, you should be able to get plenty of scapes to try it out. And the classic dish is with scrambled eggs, or with like eggs Benedict as a topping to eggs Benedict is for the scapes. But it's you got to try it. Okay, what else we got?
Any tips or best varieties of shallots?
Okay, whoever sent this in probably might have taken one of our other classes where we've combined shallots and onions and other things. Shallots have their own tremendously fascinating story that also goes back before Charlemagne, but involves Charlemagne, because the French gray shallot is a true shallot, and that for the thousands of years that it's been cultivated, they've never found a flower. The French shallot, the French gray shallot, is planted, mineralized soil, well drained, good fertile soil, but it has to be drained, otherwise you won't get good production. And that's a fascinating, because the taste and everything, it was Charlemagne's favorite allium. He had soups made out of it. The use of the sea salt as part of the thing has just a tremendous history. I mean, I could talk for an hour just on those shallots. The other shallots that you find, like the Dutch red or the yellow shallots, are not true shallots, but a form of potato onion. It's a bulbing onion, a clumping onion, and it's not a true shallot, although it has a shallot-like taste, very similar to elephant garlic not being a true garlic, but having garlic taste. The red Dutch and the yellow shallots are not true shallots, but rather just a regular common onion that they used and sold because it had a shallot-like taste, which has to do, I mean, it's just a fascinating story. It has to do with, again, during Ronald Reagan, there was a problem with American beef going to France because it had hormones in it. The French didn't like that, so they put a prohibition on it. And the United States retaliated by not letting French shallots come into the United States. So the Dutch, who were ever inventive, had these small onions that kind of looked like and tasted like shallots. They said, well, hey, why don't you use these? And I mean, it's just a fascinating story in agriculture. Next story, or next tip. I'm sorry.
Would we be planting these next spring?
No, you're going to be planting the garlic between now when you get them and the time the snow covers your garden. What you want to do, and I'm sorry I did not make this clear, you want to get the garlics planted so that their roots will develop before the ground freezes. So we're planting them in the fall, and we'll be harvesting them in August, or yeah, about August. So the reason we're doing this workshop now is that we're planting them now. Next one.
I garden in earth boxes. Will these work for garlic, or do you recommend planting in the ground?
Yes, absolutely, and you won't have to mound up your rows. It will be dynamite. You want to make sure that the soil that you're using in your earth box is mineralized, so it does not get soggy, that it doesn't get boggy like. So you want the water to drain. You want some moisture holding retention, but you don't want it just to get really compacted and mucky, because that will affect your garlic, and it doesn't like to be soggy.
Great. Will there be a cheat sheet like other workshops? And I can answer that quickly. Yes, there will be a condensed version of the information that Dave shared in his slides, shared with everyone.
Yeah, there's the 3 slides on prepping your cloves with the fertilizer and sanitizer, and then the planting instruction. Those 3 will be printed out and sent out separately.
Where can Tahoeans get seeds or starts that best grow in the Tahoe area for garlic or other veggies?
I don't want to be somebody promoting one or the other, but the Green Thumb Garden in Carson has garlics that are suitable for the Tahoe area, and then I'm not sure if Nell's for vegetables. Nell's this year in South Lake Tahoe was a little bit behind because of this coronavirus thing, and then in Truckee, the Truckee Garden Center there, Village Garden, I think it is. That guy knows garlic and veggies like no one's business. So if you're on the North Shore or in the Tahoe City or Truckee area, that Village Garden Center is just dynamite.
Great. How far should garlic cloves be planted apart from one another?
6 to 8 inches on center. So again, a 5-gallon container, 3 cloves of garlic, you should be good to go.
And then there was another question that just came in that I haven't typed up yet, but what is an earth box?
An earth box is just a growing system that uses prepared soil in like a raised bed, except on a smaller scale. And whoever knows more than that could chime in with another chat item or something.
And then could you repeat the name of the place in Carson that you mentioned?
Oh, it's Green Thumb. It's on Curry Street by Bank of America. I mean, by Wells Fargo Bank. It's on Curry, and those guys sell bulk garlic, and then during the spring they have their vegetable sale, and they have potatoes and stuff like that. And they're very, very knowledgeable and very friendly. But again, with this Corona thing, this last few months, they've also been having trouble getting materials. Speaking of that, I want to say that this whole season, there's been a tremendous interest in growing your own food and growing your own vegetables, and it has affected the availability of garlic. So we really struggled to get the 4 garlic varieties that we did, and had to go all the way to Wisconsin. And just to give you a kind of a handle on it, the cost of organic seed garlic exceeds that of prime rib on a per pound basis. It's costly. So,
all right.
Anything else?
We have one other question that came in that I think is a really great question, and then we're going to wrap up by sharing the information about the pickup locations. But someone just asked, if there's a dry winter, do we need to water them through the winter?
That's a good question. If they sprout, then you want to keep them moist. But if it's below freezing temperatures, it won't do a lot, and you just got to go with what you have. So the real question is, if it's dry and cold, we're not too worried about it. If it's cold and dry, or not cold and dry, in other words, still above freezing, but no rain or no snow, then you want to keep it moist, because it will dry out. And if it dries out, it can affect the initial root development, which will affect the overall size of your bulb. Does that make sense? So again, real quick, if it's dry and cold below freezing, not to worry. If it's dry and the temperatures are mild above freezing, then you have to keep the ground moist. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. And just quickly to go through, if you have any questions for Dave, there his email there, davidmlong@earthlink.net. The presentation has been recorded and will be posted online at the Slow Food Lake Tahoe website, which will be, the link to that will be shared in the follow-up email. This Saturday, September 19th, we are having the pickup for the 4 garlic varieties that Dave detailed for us from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 3 different locations at South Lake Tahoe, in South Lake Tahoe, or South Lake Taco, if you heard my blunder earlier this season, at Verde Mexican Rotisserie, in Tahoe City at the Tahoe City Demonstration Garden, also the same thing as the UC Davis Tahoe City Field Station, or in Truckee at the Truckee Demonstration Garden. And depending upon which location you specified in your registration, you'll receive specific instructions for those pickup locations. And then we have a survey for everyone to fill out prior to picking up that collects some preliminary information to help with our varietal phenology study. And then additionally, in consideration for our community members, we require that you wear a mask during pickup for garlic, and we have a $10 suggested donation available to donate at each of the locations. So I'm gonna leave this screen up for a minute. If you wanna write down Dave's email, if you have any questions as you plant your garlic throughout the season, leading into the winter before the ground freezes, as Dave mentioned. And you're welcome to review the presentation at any time. And like we said in the Q&A, we will be sharing a cheat sheet with the basic information needed to help you get your garlic planted. So make sure you fill out those surveys before coming to pick up your garlic on Saturday morning, and we look forward to seeing you then. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.